Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as usual, feel free to check out my personality story merch store that is all about building a tribe here and encouraging you to wear your personality with pride. There is a huge variety of designs out there that is catering to different personalities and personality traits. So feel free to take a look in my description box below and also check out my Patreon for exclusive content. The latest write-up on how to develop the TE function will be up later today. And there's also like quite a number of other articles out there. It's all really long and detailed to make sure that you get the best information that you need. So today, I'm going to be talking about basically the users as well as the pitfalls of each function in MBTI that you know of. So I would try to be as honest and no BS as possible. There will be some sincere roasting of each function. So no worries, I'll be roasting my own functions as well. And also talking about how you can better use the function in a beneficial way. It is important not to sugarcoat anything when it comes to every function because no function is perfect and there are many different ways of using the same function. The first function that I want to be talking about are the sensing functions. So the sensing functions are introverted sensing and extroverted sensing. So depending on your personality type, you might be a SJ or MP. In that case, you use introverted sensing, and if you are an SP or NJ, you use extroverted sensing. So introverted sensing, like what do I find beneficial? So introverted sensing is focused on subjective experiences. I think it also, as like a dominant function, it can also be kind of focusing on stability and this feeling of comfort around you and really taking care of your physical needs when it comes to, making sure that you are thriving, like your body is thriving, that you are able to take care of yourself and also people around you. So you can see like, typical STJ or SFJ moms, like making sure that the kids have like their meals on time, like making sure that they have like what their body needs, and that's really important. I think another thing about SI as a function is that it is very focused on kind of the simplicity of life, very like minimalistic and focusing on like comfort. I feel like some SJs, I'm kind of envious of them because they kind of just take life as it is. As long as like the physical comfort is there, I feel like a lot of like SI users are able to like find comfort and happiness in like just very simple things in life. Family, friends, and all that, which is great. Okay, now going on to the flip side of SI. So as many of you are aware, SI users are focused on their own experiences. So sometimes it's hard for them to understand like experiences from an objective point of view because SI is pretty much subjective. So if they have a set of experiences, they may not be able to understand why other people might be having a different set of experiences. And they may not be able to see it from like a bird's eye view perspective. Also, they can kind of get lost in the nostalgia. Like sometimes they can like glorify the past, or maybe not even glorify. They can like see the past is better as it is because they just have this like nostalgic streak. Like they don't want to let go of certain things that happened in the past. Or it can kind of cling on to the past, which may or may not be a bad thing. Like obviously there are certain things in the past that are actually good. So, if you cling on to that, then it's good. But if they just cling on to like the past indiscriminately, then that's a problem because obviously there are things in the past that are not positive and probably shouldn't be like repeating itself. So that's something to be aware of, and also like being like overly detail oriented. I mean, details are important for sure in some situations, but just like sometimes overly concerned with the details and not being able to see the bigger picture out there, kind of, I guess, having the wrong focus in certain situations is something that like SI users have to be careful of, especially the stronger SI users. So moving on to SE, Extroverted Sensing. Extroverted Sensing is more focused on like what is actually going on. It is about the objective sensory experience. And Extroverted Sensing is very much about the five senses, about like the immediate sensations. And obviously, as you know, extroverted sensors, especially the stronger ones, they can kind of get lost in all things physical, really. It can be like materialism, it can be like physical pursuits, like having like this like daredevil experiences, or having like just a lot of physical experiences in general, and focusing on like their own appearance or other people's appearance. And again, this can be like both a bad and good thing, because it can be a good thing because they are getting a lot of experiences in life, and they have this like they know that they're gonna die one day. Like they're very aware that, you know, we're not gonna be here forever, so we have to like try to get as much experience as possible. But at the same time, it can be an issue when they kind of go overboard and they're overly valuing certain experiences that really shouldn't be like valued, in a sense that, you know, if an experience is bad and you continue to seek that, then it can lead to like an addiction problem. And also, like, because we have like obviously limited time on Earth, it's not possible to experience everything, and so sometimes you have to like have your priorities and pick and choose, because if everything is like based on what you experience immediately, and everything is based on like what brings you the most excitement, then sometimes you kind of lose yourself in the middle of it all. And also, extroverted sensing is about courage. I think extroverted sensors can really stand up for themselves. They can be very strong in that sense, like even if the whole world is against them, maybe not literally, but they can really like stand up for themselves, and they're very able to kind of speak for themselves, and they're assertive, and they're not afraid of like haters. I mean, you see that a lot, right? Like in like dominant SE users, they're not afraid of like people who don't believe in them. You see that a lot in like rap music as well, which I think has a lot of SE elements. And they can be very strong within themselves. Like they can be very confident within themselves, although not necessarily true for every single SE user. But I think there is this like inner strength that can be capitalized with this function, which is very helpful in many like difficult situations in life. However, SE can also have this like me versus the world mentality, because they are so strong. SE users, if they're not careful, they can kind of form this like divide with themselves and like people who are not on their side, and they can kind of have this like mentality of like wanting to fight. May or may not be physical, but like SE is pretty aggressive, you know, when it's angry and stuff. I mean, even INFJs know that, right? Like even if you have like last function SE, you know that sometimes you have like that fighting spirit, which can be used for good, right? It can be great, like if you want to like stand up for yourself or speak up or like voice out something that other people may have neglected, and like really have the courage to do that. But at the same time, you can have like this fighting mentality, always like going against other people, and that can like lead to obviously tragic consequences. But at the same time, because every single function is a paradox in itself, SE users can also be pretty chill and laid back actually. So there are different sides to SE, because it is about living in the moment and making best out of your experiences. So focusing on that, and also on like being able to be strong when times are necessary, I think that would be really beneficial. Okay, now moving on to TI and TE. So TI is a lot more to do with critical analysis. TI is a lot more subjective as well. TI focuses on forming your own conclusions to events, whereas TE is more on focusing on the objective data, statistics, even though data and statistics are not always objective as well. But TE is relying on the kind of like knowledge that you have before, and also like collecting facts and maybe like, you know, cross-referencing facts and data and like relying on what has been kind of like the logical conclusions that people have already been like able to formulate over the years, which is also helpful. But for TI, I think one benefit is that TI is really, really good at critical analysis. So any strong TI users, okay, TPs especially, they're going to be really good at like telling if someone is lying, if someone is emotionally manipulative. They are really good at telling, like way better than any other people. Just talk to the TP types if you want to figure out if someone's like lying to you or emotionally manipulating you. They would give you reasons, and you have to be open to listening, because a lot of times TI can be really misunderstood, because people are going to be like, you know, this person seems decent, like what do you mean he's lying? Or, you know, this church or this organization seems like, you know, great or whatever. And then the TI user is like, no, actually there's a lot of like shady business going on. And TI users are really good at like investigating. So hear TI users out. Like, I'm not saying you have to agree with everything they say, but definitely hear them out, because they may be able to see things that you're not able to see. Because TI is really good at that. And I mean, growing up with like an NTP dad and also like around NTP friends, like that's why I feel like I really have a good grasp of TI because of them, and it is like very useful in many ways. However, TI can also be stubborn, and TI can also go into like this like conspiracy theory mode, which, I mean, sometimes it's interesting, just get to like the theories and stuff, but bear in mind that you also need to have enough evidence. So obviously not every conspiracy is going to be real, and sometimes you can like search up conspiracies just like to benefit your own argument, but conspiracy theories have to be backed up by some kind of evidence. It can't just exist by itself. So definitely that's something that is like TI users have to be careful of. Okay, going to TE now. TE is really good at like the evidence part, like hard evidence, you know. And I feel like TE is actually really necessary, even though, again, you know, a lot of times, you know, when people are emotional, TE can kind of aggravate them, because it's like, oh, I don't want to, you know, listen to this and that. But TE is really important, because if you think about it in the modern courthouse, okay, like innocent until proven guilty, right? And it's like you need to show evidence before you trial someone. And this is something that, you know, can aggravate certain people. They say like, oh, but this person is already like a murderer, or this person's like, seems like a rapist, or, you know, and we want to see like that person punished. But TE can step in and say, you know, we need evidence, we need like full proof. And the thing is, sometimes how you feel may not be the truth, and this can be true for anybody, like for any situation. And so like if you don't have evidence for a certain crime that the person did, you can very easily rely on your own bias, which can actually lead to innocent people in prison for life. And obviously this is something that's still going on. Like a lot of people are still kind of using this like faulty evidence and, you know, like kind of manipulating it to their own benefit. But I think the usefulness of TE is really to like cross-reference data, and even if you don't have like the best statistics and it can be manipulated, but I think it is still important to like just look at the numbers and to make sure that everything is like corroborated and that everything add up, because otherwise it's really flimsy, you know. People can have their own bias in a way, and it would create a lot of problems without TE. And TE is also about strategy. It's also about being effective. And that is something that is very important as well. Like if you want to do something, if you want to make something happen and you don't have a strategy, that's very unlikely that what you want to happen will happen, like unfortunately. Because as much as you want certain things to happen, as much as you feel a certain way, if you don't have a very effective like solution, which TE users are really good at, and that's why you see like, why are, you know, for example, NTJs the highest earning people? I mean, obviously, yes, there are some like, you know, industries that are like favored or whatever, but it's also because they just have like more strategies when it comes to making money. You know, they really know the ways and are very effective at doing what they want to do. And that's something that is worth learning, I think. You know, bad traits of TE, it's like a stereotype already, like being like authoritative, not listening to other people's opinions, not respecting dissent or not respecting discourse, or not being open enough to like different ideas, or not wanting people to disagree with them. Also having the power trip problem. I mean, obviously not every single TE users, but I'm saying there are TE users who do that and they may not even be aware of it, but you know, they can go on a power trip and just like do things because they are like in the position of power and not necessarily because it would like benefit the corporation or the people around them in any way. It can really lead to like an abusive situation. Okay, FE. So honestly, I feel like no function should be glorified over the other because every function has its own flaws. FE is really good at being like very socially responsible and also being like really aware of people's emotions around them and taking care of people's emotions, being considerate. I think that's a good term for FE users. Like they do consider people's emotions. I mean, obviously not always, because FE users also have times when they know that they need to like do something that may upset other people and it's for a purpose. But I think in general they are going to be able to take people's emotions into consideration in daily life. They would try to make sure that people around them are kind of taken care of in a way, and they can also be very caring in situations and giving like the kind of concern for people in a really obvious way that, you know, sometimes may not even be reciprocated, but they still do it. So, and it's great when it comes to emotionally supportive workplaces as well. I feel that FE users are able to create that environment that is emotionally supportive and encouraging, and not so focused on just getting work done, but they're also like able to look into the human aspect, making people feel motivated to do things well because they feel like they're respected. And this is something that I like about FE leadership. The flip side of FE being very overly concerned with how the social environment around them is like not being able to say what they truly want to say because they're afraid of like someone, you know, criticizing them or someone not liking what they say. Again, this is like not saying every single FE user, but FE can have that effect. And also like I think FE is a function that is basically very, very easily influenced by people around them because it is extroverted feeling. So how people around them feel, they probably will feel the same. And how people around them think, even, I feel like it would very highly influence the FE users. And so if they are not very like well developed in the TI side, then FE users can kind of adopt the views of people around them pretty easily and also kind of absorb the feelings of people around them. So they don't really have like this independent thinking and feeling if they are not like developed in other functions. And obviously that can lead to like a loss of personal identity or just not being able to be like, thinking about certain things true, and instead like being overly reactive to the environment around them. Okay, FI, the good thing about FI is that they are very clear on how they feel. Generally, I would say FI is less likely to be absorbing other people's emotions, even though that can also happen, but I think FI is more clear on what they want because they're more clear about like how they feel at that moment, and they would attend to their own emotional needs. I think they're able to have like this very like creative way of expressing their emotions. Like, I feel that a lot of the introverted functions are able to go more in depth on things. So this is the same for FI. They're able to be more in depth when it comes to feeling their own emotions, and they can really like process through their emotions before like moving on to the next emotion. And they're really good at like encouraging other people to do that as well, which is good for all of us really, because you don't want to be like too touch and go about things. Like sometimes not processing through your emotions can lead to things building up and all that, and like exploding, you know. Flip side of FI users can be unaware of how other people around them are feeling as a result of how they feel. They can wallow in like their emotions a lot, and again, like not be aware of how that can have an effect on other people around them. And they can go into this spiral of like feelings. And I think especially for FI users that are not developed in the TE departments, because all FI users also use TE, they would tend to kind of focus on validating feelings, which is good to a certain degree, but it doesn't really lead to anything like beyond that. So what I mean is that, you know, if an FI user does not have TE to help them, then it ends up being like an emotional spiral. They just keep having these emotions and they don't channel it into anything productive, because TE is about channeling it into something constructive and you know, effective. And so FI users, they can get into this like loop where they just keep feeling things and validating your own feelings with other FI users, but not getting anything done in the process, like not having a strategy, not having like anything happen. So again, it's about a balance for every single function. And lastly, for NI and NE, NI is great at being very insightful. It can get like really deep into concepts and ideas, way deeper, I would say, than NE, because NE is more focused on the breadth of ideas, and NI can really delve deep into the metaphors and the symbols, and it can also be really creative in a different way from NE. And it's, you know, down the rabbit hole. I love to use that analogy for NI. I think when NI is like in this reflective mode, it can gather a lot of information and reflect upon them in order to, you know, benefit the future, because NI is futuristic and oriented and does not want to repeat the mistakes of the past, or like wants to kind of look at patterns and kind of predict the future. It's not really like a foresight thing, but I would say it's more like looking at patterns and like understanding how everything works and giving like a lot of very, I would say, like interesting observations that maybe people are not able to think of. However, NI users have to be also aware that their insights are also subjective in nature, and they can have this like tunnel vision problem where they can be like really fixated on a particular idea and maybe not be able to see other ideas. And I think NI users can also be like overly isolating themselves, kind of not participating in life, you know, like, you know, when you look at SE, is like the direct opposite, right? They're always like participating in life and like making things happen, and NI can kind of be like always in the observer seat. It's going to impact your life in a way like you're not able to have a very fulfilling experience, because ultimately like relationships and friendships and like career and all those things still matter, and they need like you to be present. I think NI users sometimes are fearful of participating, or maybe they don't want to destroy like this perfect imagination or something, but it is very useful to participate sometimes, because otherwise it's like you end up not having a lot of experiences and only living in your head, you know. So NE as a function, the good thing about NE, a lot of creative energy, a lot of like energy in general. NE users especially the dominant users, are very high energy, and they can like impact other people's energies and also lead to more ideas. Especially if you look at NTPs, they like to kind of shoot ideas like across the room or something. They like to kind of test it out and ask other people what they think, and that leads to more ideas being born. It also can be very inspirational when it comes to like brainstorming, coming up with like creative concepts. Bad thing about NE, it's also very hid in the clouds, so being overly theoretical, not really looking at whether it really works, because NE can have a lot of great ideas but not actually know how it would like work in reality, and maybe not even testing it out, and just having like a bunch of ideas is not enough. And also kind of being flighty, I think NE sometimes have that quality, like always jumping from one idea to the next, or even from one person to the next, not being able to like get settled on one idea because they just don't know how to pick and choose. It can be pretty tough for any users, especially in a world where they expect you to decide, you know, like, oh, what job you want, like the person you want to be with and all that. And remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.